Hello. Long time no see. How are you? I am excited to come live tonight. It's been a while. I've been basically sharing this with my friends who have been coaching with their health and, their transformation journey about reading for 5 minutes a day. Whatever you're reading, just focus on personal growth for 5 minutes a day. You will find that over the course of a year, if you do 5 minutes a day, you will amass an incredible, insane amount of information that will help you grow into your best self. Small steps. So I'm going to choose the book today for 5 minutes with you. We'll see, I hope, okay? I don't promise it will actually be 5 minutes because let's face it, it's hard for me to cut things short. So this book, we're going to read from this book, and I have read from this book before. It's called the Lifebook. This is your Lifebook. If you do want the first 2 chapters for free, I can access that for you. Just reach out to me. I can help you get that. And maybe you'll like the book and want it for yourself. It's an excellent tool. I actually use it for the clients that I coach with. And I'm going to read to you chapter 5. Not the whole thing, but I will read to you chapter 5. It's an excellent chapter. Element 5, and it's broken down into 26 elements, so you do like one every 2 weeks. But chapter 5 is about, element 5 is about building a healthy mindset. And the goal of this element is to really learn your triggers. So if you have people in your life that trigger you and you don't like that feeling that you're almost compelled to respond, but you don't like to have that feeling of not being in control of your emotions, this is a great chapter for you, okay? So, again, this is page 126 from the Lifebook. So if you're watching and you have this book, please go take it out and read along. Okay, so I heard this today from my anesthesiology coworker who said to me, I don't get angry much. I'm like, really? And he does look like a really easygoing guy. He says, no, I don't get angry much. I said, well, what is it? He said, a guy told me once, what angers you controls you. That kind of put things in perspective for me. That like, I don't want people controlling me, and I don't want, not to be in control of myself. So definitely, I don't want to be angry. And it actually in the Torah it says a person who is a angry person, like who like feeds into his anger and falls into that, right? He's like an idol worshiper. Why? Because it's almost like he doesn't have a soul, and he's embodied by this evil spirit, and he's like bowing down to this idol concept of there is no God, there is only these, right? Because when we get angry, what happens? We lose focus on what's the bigger picture, right? That there's something else going on. So, okay. I'm going to read to you page 127. This is about relationships. Relationships are critical to everything we do in life. We are hardwired to be social, and our sense of connection, belonging, and attachment to other people is one of the most fundamental of all human needs. This connection not only serves us on our journey to health and well-being, but is also essential to living a longer, healthier life. And I see some of you joining. Hi, guys. Some of you actually have this book. Please open it. I will call you tomorrow on my coach day and have this conversation with you. Okay. People that lack these fundamental human relationships of companionship and connection are at a 45% greater risk of dying earlier. So, if positive connections are so powerful, how do we create more of them? How do we deepen our connection with existing relationships? And also, how do we manage the toxic relationships that seem to be following us sometimes? Okay, so let's talk about a mindset concept. There's this concept called a line, which either you are above it or below it. If you are above the line, you are considered open, curious, and with a growth mindset. And I've mentioned this before. This is worth re-mentioning. Below the line thinking is closed, defensive, and wanting to be right. Today, I had a client at work, a patient who was upset, very belligerent, very self-entitled, just, throwing words around about how incompetent the coworkers are around me, and how wrong. Have you ever been around this, or have you experienced this, personally? At first, we try to right it, right? By defending it, by saying, no, that's not true. Or like, let me explain why you think that's not really the situation. What really is happening is he's below this line in this mentality of wanting to be right and defensive and attacking. When you acknowledge it for what it is, you allow it to breathe itself out. Like, you don't feed it more than what it needs. Whatever you feed grows. So if you let that, just leave it alone, but without judgment. Not like, oh, look at him, let me just watch how he's like being crazy right now. No, just kind of like recognize he's having a crazy moment. And we all go through that. Every single one of us has these moments where we drift into this below the line thinking. And for us to be able to go above that line, the first step is asking yourself, where am I? Where am I? And if you realize like, hey, I'm kind of judgmental, I'm kind of closed right now, and I'm kind of defensive and wanting to prove myself, where are you? You're not in the place that you really want to be, which is open, curious. Because in that place of being open and curious and just learning, in that place is where real development happens in your relationships, within yourself, and learning to like really expand your consciousness. Okay, so after watching him have this whole experience, I noticed he felt really bad. I think because he kind of like understood, I'm not judging him. He's just where he's at. And I fell into it a little bit, but then I came out because I was like, okay, let him be. Right? When you just let people be, they learn to come out of that place. The other day, I was actually having a situation with one of my kids, and he was very upset, my older one. He was really upset with something that I did. And honestly, didn't know that he didn't mention it to me, that I need to do it a certain way, or like I deleted something that was belonging to him on the computer. He never mentioned that it was important to him. It's not even his computer, it's mine. So a part of me was like proving to be right, right? Like I want to prove that I'm not at fault here, Maybe you should take responsibility and like recognize, right? What's that like, that righteous thinking. And I couldn't get above the line as much as I tried. Like I knew I was there, and his behavior kept me, you just kind of push each other. And when he went upstairs, and this is the power of learning to get back up. It's never too late to get back into that greater space. He went upstairs, and I was like to my husband, I said, if I could do that over again, I would do it differently. And I retraced and reprogrammed what I would have done. This is a very powerful concept. You redirecting, you like literally, John Maxwell talks about this in one of his books, where you're reprogramming your brain by envisioning what it is that you would have wanted to happen. And I said, I would have wanted to be more compassionate towards him and show him some compassion about his frustrations, that he now lost something that he thinks was my fault, but just letting him experience that and holding space for him. And being able to think like that prepares me for the next time. Being able to think in that way, meaning saying like, hey, I'm not trying to prove myself that I'm right. I'm just trying to expand by learning how to shift back up. Because we all drift, no matter how great of a leader you are or great of a mom, we all shift below the line, drift below the line, and we have to shift back up. Okay, so actually in the olden days, when we didn't have, civilization as much, the threats that we experienced were very real, and the adrenaline that we felt was for survival. So it was that fight or flight response that would make us stop and assess for survival, either to run or attack, what we're going to do. However, in today's day and age, we don't experience this as much. What does that mean? We don't have this fight or flight to survive. We have it when our ego is impacted. So, for example, it's here we go. Many times you will find that your ego is at play. Oh, wait. The beauty, if you can recognize and become fully aware of the emotion, then you can understand what is causing it. The beauty is that it usually represents a symptom of something we need to address in ourselves or our relationships. And if you can avoid feeling that way by reframing what you heard to serve you in a more constructive way, then you are going to be in a much better situation. So really reframing and kind of restructuring it will allow you to really see things differently. The ego, however, stops us from seeing that. Many times you'll find that your ego is at play. If you resist the temptation to interpret these interactions as real threats, then you can immediately diffuse it and diffuse those disturbing feelings. If it is a genuine threat to you, then you will be able to respond in a more reflective way. What does this mean? What does all this mean? Hi, Marta, my cousin is here. All this means basically is that nowadays, a lot of times, we're in a social gathering and someone triggers something. And by the way, some people do tend to trigger you more than others. And you know that. You know who they are. You can just close your eyes and picture that person. That something taps into your response and you just go off. You'll be in this environment and somebody in the group will say something. And you'll feel this physiological response. Your heart might start racing. You might feel frustrated. You might be like, why am I feeling this way? I don't like to feel this way. I don't want to feel this way. However, you start to focus more like, why did she say that? Why is she treating me this way? Maybe it's somebody close to you. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's somebody even, I don't know, an in-law or something. When you start to think like that, that's basically your ego feeling wounded. And using that olden day fight or flight concept into the present day, because our body still does this physiologically. So what has to happen for us to be able to get back into the vision of what we need to do? What has to happen? Stop. You have to just pause and recognize that it's happening. Challenge it with a different question. What kind of question? So most of us ask this question. Why is he so mean? Why is she so annoying? Why can't she just be a decent human being? What happens is we start developing answers that support the questions we're giving, and our response is feeding our ego, which makes us want to say something and be frustrated. So instead of that, ask yourself a different question. So challenge yourself with, and I've done this, it is powerful, it works. Simply recognize, so you stop, you're like, hey, I'm doing this again. I'm acting like a crazy person, or I'm thinking like a crazy person, or I'm getting frustrated, I don't like it. Challenge with a different question, which is, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now? Your brain will force answers into the front of your head. Like, hey, I'm grateful that, my husband did something nice. Or I'm grateful my kids are A, B, and C, whatever. All of a sudden, the irritating thing that was affecting your ego is not as powerful as the soul state that's coming out. Because your soul state is always focused, right? We're in the state of gratitude when we're in our soul state. And we're in a state of depletion and like not enough. Somebody has more than us, or somebody's treating us badly when we're in our ego. We have to prove ourselves. We have to be enough. It's always in a state of fear, as opposed to soul, which is always in a state of love. And there's always these two opposing forces, fear and love. And the love happens when we focus on what we actually have, that abundance that exists in our life. So asking yourself, what am I grateful for? Or is it really something that I should be focused on this, or can I focus on something better? These questions, they seem simple and maybe unnecessary, but they are very useful if you practice them. In the beginning, as with anything you're going to try doing, it's challenging. It's challenging to get yourself to do things differently. However, your brain tends to create neural pathways and wants to do these things. It wants to create a new pathway when you start saying, hey, I'm doing this. So I definitely, I think you should work on this if this is something that you relate to with the Stop, Challenge, Choose. If you like this concept of Stop, Challenge, Choose, I have a webinar that I just shared with one of the clients that I'm coaching. And you can do this with food. You can do this with like emotions. You could do this with like, you know, if you have an issue with lashing out at people, especially somebody close to you, stop, challenge, choose. And a lot of times the stop means take a drink of water or take a deep breath or go for a walk if you can. The challenge is ask yourself a question. What do I really want? What's really important for me? What am I grateful for? These questions are really powerful. And then ask yourself to choose what's worth it for me. Should I continue investing my energy in this, or can I move on? And that is called checking yourself before you wreck yourself. That's why I titled it Check Yourself Before You Wreck Yourself. If you check yourself consciously, you will prevent yourself from having so many depleted experiences. And I'm going to end with this. Yesterday, I saw my friend, a cardiology PA, and we were walking. It was gorgeous weather. And she tells me, my grandma died yesterday. Was it yesterday? She said, my grandma died like a few days ago. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. She says, she was 100 years old. And I was like, okay, question time. What? Like, amazing. How did she become 100 years old? And like, what did she do? Share with me secrets of her health. I'm always interested in these things. And she says to me, you know, she never took too much things personally. She didn't like take it to heart. She didn't absorb a lot of negative energy that was constantly around her. She just learned to let it pass and just not let it stick onto her. And that helped her a lot because she was kind of like above that negative vibe that exists in front of so many, sometimes in your face. And that's a choice. That's a choice. When you realize drama doesn't follow you, you attract drama by engaging in it. It's a two-way street. By having conversations with it, by being involved and talking about it and gossiping, that's when you know you're part of it. So if you want to grow to be 100 years old, like my friend's grandma, learn to recognize which energies are useful for your time, because there's always a transaction happening. You're always giving and receiving something. You're giving some energy, you're receiving something. You're maybe working with somebody with a financial transaction. Sometimes it's not worth the transaction, right? You're like, this is not worth my energy. Remember that. It's rarely worth your energy. What's worth your energy? Your children's hugs, your laughter. I mean, these are worth your energy. Focus on things that can build and grow that energy as opposed to things that can deplete and remove that. Thank you for the likes and comments, whoever's doing that. Have a beautiful night. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you found this helpful. If you do want to see more of this book, let me know. I have the first 2 chapters if you do want it. This is the book. It's called Your Lifebook. This is the book that a lot of the clients who are interested in transformations work with because it's focused on the mindset. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much. I hope the rest of your week is great. Bye.